Hello, Aubrey. How's it going today?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to talk about water fights
I
today.
know this is going to be so fun. What is the biggest water fight you've ever been in?
Hands down, it's the Songkran festival in I think it was in Chiang Mai. I attended it in Chiang Mai, Thailand in 2006,
Oh
7.
my gosh,
I
that
don't
is
know.
so awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait for this. We were talking about Songkran today. I've never been, but it looks so fun. It looks
it's cool.
amazing. And this was fantastic that for 3 years they weren't able to have that festival due to the pandemic. But just this year, as of April 13th, they were able to celebrate it again.
Ah,
Crowds in the street. I saw pictures and video. It looked so fun. So I'm excited for you to tell us all about this festival and to talk about water
yeah,
fights because in American culture, this is big. We have a lot of water fights as
big.
kids and even as
Yes.
adults. And this is such a great thing to chat with people about.
Oh my gosh, people love it. Summertime, it makes me think of slip and slides,
Uh
right? Water
huh.
fights, water guns, and just fun stuff. Being a kid or being an adult and feeling like a child again, right?
Exactly, right? Because it is more popular among adults. My kids have water fights with just like super soaker water guns out by the
Super
pool
soakers,
all
yeah.
the time. But
Yeah.
adults get involved too sometimes because it's just so fun.
Oh yeah, no question, no question. All right, so where are we going today with
Yeah, so
this?
start. We'd love to hear. I would love it. I know our listeners would too. Give us some details about Songkran. What's it like? Some listeners might not have heard of this before. This might be new that there's this giant water festival. So let us know some details about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was so long ago. Like I said, I think it was 2007. I had been living in Japan for a year and a half, and it was the end of my contract. And so before I went home, I was going to travel Southeast Asia, of course. So I took 3 months to travel Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos. That's what it was. Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos. And I think I might have been smarter in my 20s. I planned things a little better. So because I knew about Songkran, I thought, oh, I should go.
Nice.
And I hit it so that I arrived right in the middle of it. And I chose Chiang Mai just because I had heard it would be better than Bangkok. It would be the best place to celebrate Songkran. And it was just a giant water fight in the streets everywhere. I remember the hostel where I was saying said, "Do not leave the hostel without wrapping your camera in a plastic bag."
Oh,
That's when
yeah.
we had actual cameras, point and shoot
Mhm.
cameras.
Like, you're going to
Um,
get wet.
yeah, so I had to every day I went out, wrap my money in a plastic bag, my camera, and I remember it just being lovely. And, you think of a water fight and you imagine people just with these intense guns just shooting each other. But a lot of times it was just very happy people dancing in the street and people coming up and just smiling at me and just dropping water on me
Oh.
on my head or wherever, just like saying some kind of a blessing. I can't remember exactly what
Mhm.
they said,
But not super
but they were more
aggressive, more
not
like
aggressive at
lighthearted
all.
and fun. Yes.
Yes. So it was a really cool cultural experience. I'll never forget it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it lasted multiple days then, right? You said every day you had to leave with your phone wrapped?
Yeah, 2 or 3 days,
Okay.
when I was there. I don't remember, maybe it's a week or something that it lasts, but yeah. Yeah,
That's
it was
awesome,
wild.
and it sounds like it's celebrated in multiple countries because I know Jessica was saying that she celebrated Songkran in Cambodia when she was there, but they called it
Yeah,
Khmer New Year, and it was sounded
okay.
like it was a little different. She said they exchanged water balloons with some
Oh,
monks in
cool.
a boat, so
Oh,
it's
cool.
so interesting how a lot of cultural celebrations are celebrated in many different areas, but with some variation, right? So I love that you were able
Yes.
to celebrate it there. A lot of our listeners, I'm sure, have celebrated it somewhere either in Thailand or in another country. So this is amazing. This is something that connects a lot of us. And even if
Yeah.
you haven't actually celebrated Songkran, you have likely participated in a water fight. So this is something we have in common. That's a fun thing to discuss with others.
Yes, I'm excited. It is part of American culture, this concept of a water fight. So today we're going to go through some vocabulary for our listeners, no matter what. I do wonder how popular it is. I mean, we know that this
Yeah.
happens in Songkran in Southeast Asia. We know it's common I wonder in Europe, for
I
example. I don't
know.
know.
We would love to know. And this episode is on YouTube. So come find the episode on YouTube and leave us a comment. Are there
Yeah.
water fights in your culture? Is it part of a cultural celebration or a holiday,
Yeah.
or just for fun, maybe in the backyard, a little more casual like that?
Yes. I
There's
love it.
actually a big water fight in northern Arizona on the 4th of July.
Oh
There's
my
a
gosh.
water parade where you know how there's lots of 4th of July parades? This
Yes.
one in Heber, Arizona is all water. So they're like big trucks full of water and then people are just shooting anybody, like, that's at the parade, and all of the people watching the parade
Wow.
also have water guns, and they'll, like it's a little more aggressive,
Oh,
like, they're soaking the
sounds
people
kind of
on the
aggressive.
car in the cars and also across the street, so you know you're going to get soaked. Don't even take
Yeah.
your phone, right?
Yeah, if you go out, definitely get ready to
Mhm,
get
and
soaked. You
it's
can't have a
so
bad
fun.
attitude about that. You gotta be, fun about that,
We
right?
loved
Come
it.
on.
We were sort of surprised because we just went to the 4th of July parade and we didn't know. So we were not prepared,
Oh.
but it was still so fun, and it's still very hot out, of course, in Arizona,
Yeah.
so it was
Oh my gosh.
pleasant to be
Yeah, the weather needs to
stoked.
be really hot. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to be in a hot place for a water fight, otherwise it's just painful.
Otherwise, it's not as fun. It's so
Right,
true.
right.
It reminds me of the water challenge a few years ago, but it was like the ice bucket challenge.
Oh, the
Did
ice
you ever
bucket
do that?
challenge.
Like, dump
Yeah,
an ice bucket over your head?
I never did it, but I saw a lot of my friends on Facebook
Mhm.
doing it, so it
It's
looks
funny.
painful.
I
Did you
know,
do
like,
it?
it's much more pleasant when it's warm outside, someone's just putting a little water on your head
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
dumping a bucket of ice water.
Right. Exactly, exactly.
So let's
Yeah.
dive into some of this vocabulary because
Okay.
when you talk with anybody in English about water fights, about their childhood or cultural celebrations, there's some vocabulary you're going to want to know. So, what's our
Yes.
first term here, Lindsay?
Okay. So the first one is water guns, right? And I always think about guns in general in the US. I think people probably have opinions, but we're just talking about water guns. We're talking about toys, right? I
Exactly.
mean, I personally don't really believe in toy guns, like BB
That
guns
actually
for
look like a
kids
gun.
that look like a gun, but this is different, right? This is a super soaker, or I feel like you got to draw a line somewhere and kids have to
Exactly.
have fun.
They're
You know what I
usually
mean?
very brightly colored, neon
Yeah.
colors, plastic, so they're
Yes.
obviously not a real gun, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good
Yeah.
point. These look nothing like real guns. It makes me think about Squid Game. In one of the first episodes, the dad gets, like, a toy out of one of those, grab claw machines to just have a
Okay.
toy for his daughter's birthday, and it's wrapped a gift, and he gives it to her, and it's a toy gun, but it looks just like a real gun, and his daughter's
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Mom wouldn't let me keep this." But water guns don't look like that, right? And they
No,
are
they
getting
don't.
more and more intricate. When I was a kid, they were like
Huh.
little tiny colorful pistols, and now super
Yeah.
soakers are huge. You can get
Oh my
drenched.
gosh. Oh, jeez.
Mhm.
Well, we don't need that. I
I
mean, they
know,
were
right?
fine when we were kids, just a little squirt, right? We
I
don't need the
know.
high-tech things.
The ones we
That's
have
so
for our
funny.
kids now are more like you fill it up and then pull and it shoots like quite a heavy stream, but they're kind of
Uh-huh.
small, colorful, they're fun, but yeah, our kids love playing. We have a rule at our house though that you can't shoot anyone with water unless they're also holding a water gun. So
I think
it
that's a good
has no
that's a good rule.
so no
Yeah,
one
I
unarmed.
like
If I have my book, you cannot shoot me with water.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or your laptop or
Ugh,
something like that.
seriously, right? Keep the water away from over here. But an interesting verb just came up. The vocabulary, the verbs are important too. I said I got drenched, which is just a more
Mm.
interesting way of saying I got really wet. We say I
Oh,
got
that's a really
soaked
common
or
one. That's a
drenched.
really common one, and that's a word I feel like you hear a lot as a kid, right? Or
Yes.
you use it, "Oh, I got drenched. My friend got me," or, "What, drenched me?" Would
Yeah,
you
I
say
guess it's
that?
really
I
an
f
adjective to
Yeah,
say I was drenched.
interesting.
But yeah,
Yeah,
because we
I was
don't really use
drenched.
it to say they drenched me.
No, we don't,
We
we
just say,
don't.
"I am drenched" to say I'm
Or I
wet,
got
or I
drenched.
was
Yeah.
drenched if someone got me wet.
And
Interesting.
this means super wet, like, almost as
Mhm.
if you jumped in a pool with your clothes on, right?
Exactly. That's what a
This is
super
wet. This
soaker
is
would
not
do.
just like a spot. Yeah. "I'm
Exactly.
drenched. Oh my gosh, what did you do?" Right? That kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Yes. So super interesting. Also, water balloons, like we
Yeah.
mentioned, Jessica's celebration, are just those little balloons you can fill with water and throw. We used to play a really fun game where we would each hold the ends of a towel and then
Oh,
flip it,
cool.
and it would pass the water balloon over, and they would try to catch it in their towel. Have you ever played that?
Oh, fun. I
It's so
haven't
fun.
played that. No, that sounds fun.
We played it at, like, family reunions, or
Yeah.
there are all these new they're really getting inventive now with water balloons where you can fill, like, 100 at once. Have you seen those?
Oh my
It's
gosh,
like
that's
each water
crazy.
balloon is connected to sort of a straw, and you put the whole thing on a hose, and it fills 100 all at once, and you just drop it in a
Dangerous.
bucket,
Oh my gosh,
which
no
is
way.
crazy. When we were kids, it
That's
took so
insane.
long to fill up water balloons.
That is insane. And then there's hoses, right? So typically, if you're doing this in the backyard of your parents' house with kids,
Mhm.
you have your hose that stretches out and then fill up those balloons by hand, right?
Exactly, right?
Yes.
And inevitably, someone just points the hose, and then you're really getting soaked because 'cause you're
Oh,
just
yeah.
drenching each
Then
other
they
with
just
the
forget
garden
about the
hose.
guns. Yeah.
Yes, for
Oh,
sure.
that's
Guys,
fun.
a lot of people are going to have memories of water fights as a child. So, and we've
Right.
talked about this before on the podcast, how asking someone about their childhood is one of the best ways to connect on a deeper level. So, we want
Yeah.
to share a couple of conversation starters where you can
Mhm.
ask someone about this, about either water fights in their childhood or cultural celebrations they might have been a part of.
Yeah, I love that, and we're gonna do that in just a minute here. Okay, Aubrey, I love that we're gonna get into some of those conversation starters that you mentioned before. Should we just throw out the first one of how our listeners can start that conversation?
Yes, absolutely. So I would just say, did you have water fights as a kid? Just like that,
Mhm.
right? Super
Yeah,
simple. Just asking someone, did this happen when you were a child? But I often will use that a little bit more informal slang term of kid as a kid
as a kid.
in
As a child, as
English,
a kid.
right? It sounds
Mhm.
just a little bit more formal to say as a child. Both work,
Y
but this
yeah,
is keeping it on that very informal level to say, did you do that as a kid? Did you have water
yes.
fights as a kid?
Yeah, and for our listeners, guys, you can extract the construction here, right?
Right.
If you're not talking about water fights, you could say, "Did you have blank like birthday parties as a kid, or did you do roller
Mhm.
skating, or did you do whatever,
Did you go
whatever it is,
camping as a
fill in the
kid? Did
blank."
you ride
Yeah,
bikes a
do
lot
go
as a
have
kid?
yeah, mm-hmm,
Exactly, and
yep,
that as a kid replaces when you were a child, when you were a kid,
mm,
right? It's just that little bit more informal, quicker to jumpstart into this really fun conversation.
yeah. Get beyond the question and get to the content and the connection, right, Aubrey?
Exactly. And our second one is the question I asked Lindsay right at the beginning of the episode. What's the biggest water fight you've been in? And then if someone has ever been to Songkran, this would be the perfect time for them to share about that. They might have a chance to share about a really big water fight that was a cultural celebration. Or if they haven't been to something like that, they can just share the biggest water fight they were in as a kid or as an adult.
Yes, and I think I'm thinking about our listeners in Thailand, right? I guess by the time this comes out, Songkran will have passed a little bit,
Hmm.
but either way, this is a great conversation starter with native speakers who might be traveling, right? This would be a really
Yes.
great way to offer them tips, open this up, ask them about their childhood and water fights, give them that tip that I got, which is put your camera in a bag anytime you leave the hostel for the next week, because you could ruin it, right? Get the conversation going with something from your own culture. How cool.
Yes, exactly, right? What a great way to deepen a connection. This is not small talk, but it's also
Right.
very safe, right? We're getting to a
Yeah.
deeper level, but not about anything that could create any feelings of awkwardness or make someone uncomfortable, right? Politics, religion, those things. If you ask
Yeah.
about childhood, especially something very fun, people will all have very positive memories related to this. It's a
Yeah.
great thing to start a
Yeah.
conversation about.
Yeah, we call that the low-hanging fruit,
Yes.
right, Aubrey? That's that could be another episode. This is the low-hanging fruit. These are easy topics, but substantial topics.
Yeah,
Topics where you can get some substance and connection, but it's easy. Like Aubrey said, it's not going to offend anyone. You're not hitting any touchy subjects that you want to avoid. So good.
exactly, right? Get away from the weather and just what did you do this
Oh,
weekend? Those are great for sort of small talk, but to get a little deeper, ask something like this that could spark something really fun. Just as a
I love it.
takeaway, always a good idea to ask about someone's past, someone's childhood memories, but
Yeah.
especially with this type of focus about something that would be really fun.
Perfect. I love it, Aubrey. So good. Thanks for bringing this in today. This is fantastic. I mean, that is the takeaway for today. Go for the easy stuff, but the substantial stuff, right? Go for something that gives you some fruit, right?
Yes,
Bear fruit in the conversation. I love it. So good.
exactly. So
Any
fun.
final
Awesome.
thoughts? All
Hopefully
right.
one
I
day
guess
I'll get to go to Songkran. Fingers crossed.
you should. I
Yes,
totally recommend
I
it.
need
It's
to.
really cool, especially because it's so hot at that
Yes.
time in Thailand and Southeast Asia. So you kind of,
You
it's,
welcome it.
that,
Yes. Get
yes,
me wet, cool me off.
for sure. All right, Aubrey. Thanks for hanging out today. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.